Hello friends, Satyendra here, and in this video let's understand everything about the form. So here we have 5 different options. So let's understand every small bit about these options. So in this video first I will explain these 5 options in detail, and then I will relate these options with each other to understand the difference between each other. So let's get started. So if you see this part, I have different type of punch form, die form, sketch form and quilt form. So punch and die form requires additional reference part, where sketch form and quilt form can be created directly in the part without having any additional reference part. So let's start with punch form. And for that, let's understand this part first. So this part starts with a planar wall. So this is the sketch. Now the thickness is 0.1. So this is the first wall. Then one flange added. Now how this flange is added? This flange is added directly by flange. Just select this top edge, press and hold Shift key and select the entire edge, and then go to Shape, Sketch, Sketch, and here just create a profile like this. So this is how this flange is created. Now if you see the flange dimension, the height is 10 and this side is 1. So this is the base part where I've added number of punch form, die form, sketch form and quilt form. So if I move this down, you can see this is the punch, this is also punch, then third punch, then fourth punch, then fifth punch, then sixth punch, then a set of die, then one more punch to form a handle, then number of gusset using quilt form, then sketch form. So this is how the whole part is done. Now let's start from the punch form. So if you see all this louver kind of design, these all are created using punch form. So if I move it up and open the base part, this is the reference part, the additional part. So if you see the model tree, this is the block by 0.5, 0.5 and 3. And then this plate, the back plate, then a round, another round, then one more round here, and then this back plate is removed. So this is how this part is done. Similarly, there are other punch part created. You can see this part is having slightly different size of round here. Same way, one block, then a back plate, then round, again one round, then one more round, and at last the back plate is removed. If you see third form, this is also having one punch part. So if you open this, this is one block, then the back plate, then a draft, then a round, again one round, and then back plate is removed. If you go to next form, it is like this. If you open this is the part. So this is one block, then a chamfer, then a draft, the side draft, and then a round. So this part is created. Now if I go to next punch, this is totally open from all three sides. So if you see this part, this is one block and then one chamfer. There is no round or draft added. Now if you see next form, this is the die form. So if you open this part, this is the die part. So there is a block like this. This is 0.75, this is 2.25 and this is 7.5. And then there is a cut having a taper angle of 45 and depth 0.375. And then couple of rounds. Now if I move down, this is again a punch. So if you open this is a punch part. Now if I move further down, there is a gusset pattern. So here there is no reference part. So this gusset is directly created in this part. And then we have three sketch form. So you can see sketch form 1, sketch form 2, sketch form 3. So by this you can understand that punch form and die form requires additional reference part, and quilt form and sketch form doesn't need any reference part. It can be directly created in the same part. So once you have created a reference punch part, you can call that part to create punch form in any sheet metal part. So let's add one punch form, and for that go to form, select punch form, and here you need to browse that part. So here I will browse this part, punch T5. So once it is browsed, now you need to assemble it. So switch on your datum. So I'll switch on my datum planes. So I will select this surface and I will align with this surface. Now the next constraint, from this surface to this top surface. Then the third constraint, from this plane to this. This I will move down. This I will consider 1.75. Now if you see the preview, it is going that side. So flip the direction. So now your punch is forming. So you need to just assemble this as you assemble a part in assembly. So once this is done, then you can go to option and you can remove these surfaces. See the preview. So if your punch part is having round on this corner, you will get a result like this. Here inside the option you have non-placement edges. By this option also you can add the rounds. Or otherwise, if you want to remove the side surfaces, then click this area and press and hold Ctrl key and select these side surfaces. So you will get result like this. Now in this case also, you can use placement edges to form this small round here, and this size you can change directly from this value or with the thickness. and if you say OK, your punch is formed. So this is how the punch is created. First you need to create the reference part, and then you need to call that part using punch form. Similarly, for die form, you first create a reference die part and then go to form and go to die form. So when you go for die form, it creates cavity. When you go for punch form, it creates core. Now what is core and cavity? So when your material is coming outside your punch part, it is called core form, and when your material is going inside the form part, it is called cavity part. So here I am going to create die form as a cavity form, and for that also you need to browse the reference part. So click here and go for die form. So my die part is inserted here. Now I need to assemble it. So I'll select this top surface and then I will go to this bottom surface. This one I will say coincident, and then next constant. Again switch on your datum planes. Select this datum with this datum. This one also coincident. And one more constraint, this one with this datum plane. Move it that side. And say OK. So automatically this surface will move down in the cavity of the die part and it will create a die form. So similarly, this die form is created. Now during die form also, you can remove the surface using options. Now here if you click this area and select any surface, it will remove the material. You can even add some more surface. Like this, and it will remove the material. So if you want the complete form, you don't exclude any surface, but whenever you design a louver like this, you exclude the bottom surface. So for example, if I go for this form, you can see that I have excluded one surface. If I remove this surface from here, that the entire punch will change. Now this material is not removed. So just click in this area and select any surface to remove. So now you understood the punch form and die form. Now the third option is sketch form. So if you see this area, all the forms are created using sketch form. So when we create a punch form or a die form, we always need an additional reference part to get the form. So sometime if your punch part or die part fails, then automatically your form will fail. If in case your punch part or die part is missing, then you cannot modify these forms. So these are few problems you face when you use an additional reference part. But if you can create this form without having any reference part, then you will never face this kind of problem. Another problem is when you use a reference part, managing these additional parts requires extra effort. So if you can avoid this additional part by creating the same form without using any reference part, then you will never face this kind of problem. And that is why sketch form and quilt form plays a big role in sheet metal design inside the Creo Parametric. So now let's understand sketch form and quilt form in sheet metal design. And for that, first I will drag it up here. Now to create sketch form, go to form, select sketch form, select the surface, normal, draw the sketch. So you're getting the form. If you go inside the option, you have add taper. Here you can add the taper angle, round on non-placement edges and placement edges. This one you can increase the value. You can use exclude surface to exclude the surface. You can create a form. This form can be flipped inside and you can still remove the surface. You can use different type of sketch. So in case if I use a rectangle, so this is the sketch form. Now sketch form is having some limitation. You cannot create any kind of form using this option. For example, if you see this form, the handle form, you cannot create this kind of form using sketch form because you have a taper angle here, but this side there is no taper angle. So let us try this form using sketch form. So this is my sketch. If I say OK, I am getting the form. Now if I add angle, you see what is happening? It adds angle in all four sides. So if in case I need to remove the side material, I get a result like this. So the problem with sketch form is you cannot define different angles for different faces. So this angle is uniform for all the faces. So now you understood the sketch form and the limitation of sketch form. If all sides are having same angle, then you can use this option. But what if I need to create this kind of punch without using any reference part? Yes, in that case, your quilt form works very fine. So this is the advantage you have with quilt form over sketch form. Both options create the form without using any additional reference part. But when you use quilt form, you can create any kind of complex form by adding the quilt with the same profile. So if you see this feature, I have created the same punch, this punch, without using any reference part. So just resume this. Now you see, if you go inside, there are two features. One is quilt. This is the sketch I have created. You can see this. And this sketch is exactly similar to the sketch of that part. So the same sketch I have added here. And now if you say OK, you get this kind of output. And once that is done, then you can use the quilt form to create the form. Now let's understand these two features in detail And for that, first I will ungroup it. So to create quilt form, first you need to create a quilt. So in this case, you can see the sketch. I have created a sketch from the bottom surface. There is a line, couple of arc, line, and once this sketch is created, you need to go to the option and select cap end. This option is very important. Then you need to select the surface from solid. So you need to select the capped end and you need to select the surface to form this quilt. Now this quilt is totally closed from all 6 sides. Once that is done, then you can go to quilt form, select this surface, flip it. Now you can go to option, select here, and then you can remove some of the surfaces. And adding rounds using non-placement edges and placement edges will give you the exact result. So now you can understand the advantage of quilt form over sketch form. This option is not limited to certain profile. You can create any kind of quilt and use it directly on the part to create a form. Now similarly, I have formed gussets using quilt form. So this kind of feature also can be created using quilt form. So if you see my earlier video, gusset design in Creo Parametric, in that video I have used additional reference part to form this gussets. But here let's create this feature without any reference part using quilt form. And for that, first you switch on your datum plane. Now to form the quilt, you can use any option inside this or this, any one. So I'll go with extrude. I'll select this datum plane, normal. Now I'll go to reference. I'll select this edge as a reference. I will draw one line from this side to this side. One more line to close this. Now I'll make these two lines equal. And this I will make 1. So you need to create a closed sketch like this. Say OK. Now by default it will remove the material. So uncheck remove material. Make it both side. Change to surface. Now this value I will take 0.25. Now once this is done, go to option, select cap end and say OK. So now you have a quilt which is closed from all ends. Now you go to form, quilt form, and then select this quilt. Now if you go to options, you have extrude surface. If you select this surface and this surface to be extrude, you get a result like this. If you select rounds on non-placement edges and placement edges, you get result like this. Now if you add a draft angle to this quilt and change draft hinge to this surface, you can add the angle. So let us make it 20 degree and say OK. And then if you go for quilt form, you get your gusset like this. Again, modifying the round will give you this kind of result. So now you can see that I created this gusset using quilt form. So using Quilt form, you can create any kind of complex form without using any additional reference part. And that is why Quilt form is having huge advantage over sketch form. So now by this practice, you understood punch form, die form, sketch form and Quilt form. So there is one more option inside the sketch form you have. So if you go to form, sketch form and say define internal sketch and sketch normal. Now if you draw a sketch like a circle and if you say OK, by default it starts adding the form. But here you have another option called sheet metal piercing. So if you click this, you get a half cut sheet metal. So by default it takes half of the thickness, but you can play with this value. So you can use it from 10% to 90%. So when you see the preview, it looks like this. So this side, it is half gone that side. So what exactly is this option? So you must have seen a sheet metal enclosure in which for cable routing, there will be some half cut circular punch. This punch will be removed with light hammer. So whenever you need that hole, you can remove the material easily. So this was sheet metal piercing. Now the last option, flatten form. So if you click this, all the forms will be flattened. And then you can go for unbend. So if you do not use this option and go for unbend, you cannot unbend this part. You can only create flat pattern where automatically these forms will be flattened. So if you go inside the option, you have flattened forms by default here. And that is why when you create flat pattern, all the forms get flattened. But inside the unbend, you don't have that flattened form inside the option. And that is why you need to use flattened form before going to unbend. And at last, flat form and say OK. So this was the complete idea about all 5 options inside the form, and I hope this video will be helpful. Now you can like this video if you find this content helpful, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you.